Welcome, friend. I'm James, your host, and today, we're diving into another captivating episode. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and get ready for a powerful story that's sure to resonate. If something hits home, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's dive in. Betrayed in the City of Angels, my cheating BF, 21M, and I, 22F, for years of lies and heartbreak. I never thought I'd be that person airing their dirty laundry online, but here we are. I always imagined that if I were ever betrayed, I'd walk away with my head held high, leaving all the hurt behind like a Hollywood starlet in a dramatic movie scene. But real life doesn't work that way, especially in a city like Los Angeles where appearances are everything and everyone is pretending to have it all together. I don't know if I'm looking for advice, support, or just a place to let it all out, but after years of betrayal, I need to tell my story. It's a long one, filled with lies, gaslighting, and moments I'm not proud of. Maybe some of you will understand, maybe some will think I'm crazy for staying as long as I did. I'm just hoping for some clarity, because even now, looking back, it feels like a nightmare I can't wake up from. A part of me is still that 18-year-old girl who believed in love, who thought that a relationship was just supposed to be hard work and dedication, not endless cycles of pain and mistrust. The City of Angels turned out to be the city of shattered dreams for me. January 2018, I was 18, just another girl trying to figure out life in Los Angeles. I'd moved here for college, hoping to start fresh and find myself in a city that seemed so full of promise and endless opportunities. The city had this pulse, this electricity that made you feel like anything could happen. I'd barely been here for a few months when I met Jay. He was this charming guy in one of my freshman classes, dark hair, those hazel eyes that seemed to look right through you. He had this magnetic energy, like the city itself, a mix of chaos and beauty that was impossible to resist. He was one of those people who walked into a room and instantly became the center of attention without even trying. His laugh would echo across the room, and his smile could light up the entire Hollywood Boulevard. One day, I worked up the nerve to ask him out, but he turned me down. Said he wasn't looking for anything serious. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but I tried to shrug it off. That night, I tossed and turned in my bed, replaying the rejection in my head and wondering if I'd made a complete fool of myself. But then, literally the next day, he showed up at my dorm with flowers, said he couldn't stop thinking about me. He told me he was afraid of relationships because of a past heartbreak, but that he wanted to try, just to see where it goes. Should that have been a red flag? Probably. But I didn't see it then. I thought, maybe this is how love starts. I thought it was romantic, that maybe he had just needed a moment to realize what he wanted. In hindsight, I should have seen that indecision as a warning of the chaos to come, but I was young, and I was falling fast. April 2018, by spring, we were officially a couple. Jay asked me to be his girlfriend in the most adorable way. We were on a Ferris wheel at the Santa Monica Pier, and as we reached the top, he looked at me and said, "I don't want to see anyone else up here or down there. Just you." I was on cloud nine. I thought I was living the quintessential LA romance, weekend hikes in Runyon Canyon, nights spent stargazing at the Griffith Observatory, beach bonfires in Malibu. We found out we'd both be attending the same college that fall, and it felt like fate was practically throwing us together. We spent every moment we could together, exploring downtown, sharing late-night milkshakes at diners in Koreatown, driving up the Pacific Coast Highway with no destination in mind, just the wind in our hair and the ocean stretching out beside us. It was everything I dreamed of and more. Jay had this way of making me feel like I was the only girl in the world. He'd surprise me with little gifts, write cute notes, and even make me playlists with songs that reminded him of us. I thought he was the one. It felt like we were living in our own little world, and I was so swept up in the romance of it all that I didn't notice the small things, the cracks, that would eventually shatter everything. I didn't see the signs when he'd brush off my texts because he was busy, or when he'd occasionally cancel plans last minute because something came up. I excused these things as normal parts of being in a relationship, but looking back, I can see they were the early signs of what was to come. June 2018, that summer, we signed up for a college prep program, thinking it would be fun to get a head start and spend more time together. I thought it'd be a chance for us to grow even closer, for me to see him more as we geared up for college life together. But that was when things took a turn. One day, I showed up at his place with a surprise lunch, nothing special, just burgers and fries from his favorite spot. I wanted to do something sweet, something thoughtful, to show him how much I cared. I knocked on his door with a smile, excited to surprise him. But when I got there, his roommate, C, casually mentioned that Jay had gone out earlier with a girl. Not just any girl, though, S, the same name I'd heard dropped here and there. I felt a pang of insecurity, but I quickly brushed it off, trying to act cool, telling myself it was nothing. But when Jay finally came back, I noticed a change in him. Something was different. He didn't kiss me hello like he usually did, and there was this strange, faraway look in his eyes, like he was somewhere else entirely. His voice seemed distant, his smile forced. When I asked him about his day, he gave me a vague response, "Oh, it was just a chill day." He wouldn't meet my eyes, and I remember thinking, why do I suddenly feel like a stranger in his life? I didn't push. I didn't want to be that clingy girlfriend who couldn't trust her boyfriend. But inside, my instincts screamed. I felt the first real pang of jealousy, and I hated myself for it. I had this aching feeling that something was wrong, but I wanted to be the cool girlfriend, the one who didn't nag or pry. I stuffed down my worries and convinced myself that it was nothing to worry about. Then a mutual friend reached out, said they'd seen Jay out with this girl, S, and it looked a little too friendly. There was a photo circulating around our social circle, a shot of them laughing together at an outdoor cafe, the kind of laugh you share with someone you're close to, not just a friend. I remember staring at the photo for what felt like an eternity, analyzing every detail, the way his body leaned toward her, the way her hand rested on his arm. When I confronted him, Jay admitted they'd hung out but said it was totally platonic. "Babe, I promise, it's nothing," he said, giving me that look that made me question my own gut. He said she was just a friend from the program, someone he studied with. He assured me there were no crossed boundaries. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But that was the first moment where the trust began to crack. It wasn't even about the kiss I didn't know about yet. It was about how quickly he could make me doubt myself, about how easy it was for him to dismiss my feelings with a quick, charming smile. July 2018 turns out, boundaries were crossed. A week later, Jay dumped me. Just like that. No explanation, no real closure, just, I need some space. It was a typical hot Los Angeles summer day, the kind where the heat sticks to your skin, and I remember sitting on my bed, feeling like I was suffocating. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? I was devastated. I didn't understand how he could go from telling me he loved me to suddenly pulling away. It didn't make any sense. I spent days replaying everything in my mind, looking for the moment when it all went wrong. Was it something I said? Was it the way I dressed? I was tearing myself apart trying to find a reason for the sudden shift. A week later, he came crawling back, confessing he had kissed S, but it wasn't what it looked like. He claimed he was drunk, didn't mean for it to happen, didn't even want it. It was a mistake, he said, tears in his eyes. I don't even like her like that. You're the one I love. His roommate C, who I thought I could trust, chimed in, saying Jay felt terrible and I should give him another chance. He's been a mess without you, C said. I was 18, stupid, and desperate to feel that kind of love again, even if it meant ignoring my instincts. I remember sitting on my bedroom floor, my phone in my hand, as Jay texted me late at night, begging for forgiveness. I made a mistake. I love you. I'll prove it to you, he'd said. And like a fool, I believed him. I took him back, telling myself that everyone makes mistakes, that love is about forgiveness. I told myself that if he was willing to come back and admit what he did, then maybe he was really serious about making things work. But deep down, a part of me knew I was setting myself up for more heartbreak. I was just so scared of being alone, of losing him, that I was willing to overlook the red flags flapping right in my face. I thought I could rebuild the trust that had been broken. I thought I could love him enough to make everything okay. But love alone is never enough when someone doesn't truly respect you. March 2019, things never went back to normal. It was like I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. We went out to this trendy little cafe in Silver Lake, trying to reignite what we had. The atmosphere was perfect, dim lighting, soft indie music in the background, and the smell of fresh pastries wafting through the air. I even wore the dress he said was his favorite. But it was as if there was this invisible wall between us, a tension that didn't exist before. Jay kept glancing at his phone, swiping through Snapchat, grinning at something or someone, while I sat there across from him, feeling like a ghost. I felt like I was in a scene from a movie where the girl realizes the guy's lost interest, and the music fades away as she stares at his distracted face, wondering where he really is and who he's thinking about. I tried to engage him in conversation, asking about his classes, about his day, but his responses were short and distracted, his eyes constantly flicking down to his phone. It was like I wasn't even there, like I had become an afterthought. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and slid down the wall, tears pooling in my eyes. It felt like I was alone, even though he was right there. I tried to pull myself together, splashing cold water on my face, but when I returned to the table, he didn't even notice the redness in my eyes. I asked him if everything was okay, and he just looked at me, his face blank. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," he said, his voice monotone, as if he was reciting a line he had practiced in his head over and over. It felt like he was breaking up with me right there, but instead, he suggested we take a break. I didn't know if that was supposed to make me feel better or worse. A break? I thought we were already broken. I didn't even know what we were trying to fix anymore. A week passed, and in that time, I went to a party with some friends. I got wasted, trying to drown my sadness in cheap beer and tequila shots. C was there, and he found me sobbing in the kitchen. He listened as I ranted about Jay, about how I felt like I was losing myself. I felt embarrassed for unloading on him, but I was desperate for some kind of comfort, something to fill the emptiness. At some point, he leaned in, and for a second, I leaned in too. But I pulled away. It wasn't right, even though I wanted to hurt Jay the way he had hurt me. When I told Jay about it later, he didn't even seem mad, almost like he was relieved to have an excuse to walk away. He said, "Maybe we're just not meant to be," and for a moment, I thought it was finally over. June 2019, by this time, my life was falling apart. I'd just lost my apartment, and all my plans for the summer had gone up in smoke. I had no place to stay, so Jay offered to let me crash at his place until I found something else. I told myself it was just temporary, but deep down, I hoped that maybe this was the universe giving us a second chance. I was staying in his cramped studio apartment near downtown, surrounded by the hum of the city. The nights were hot and sleepless, and I would lie there on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was just kidding myself. He'd come home from work, and we'd go through the motions, watching Netflix, ordering takeout, but it was like we were playing roles in a relationship that had long since ended. One night, while he was asleep, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through his phone. I know. I shouldn't have, but I felt this burning need to know the truth. I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I was tired of second-guessing myself, tired of feeling like I was losing my mind. There it was, a conversation with his high school crush. He was telling her all about his feelings back then, even asked if she ever would have considered dating him. It wasn't even what he said that hurt, it was the fact that he was reaching out to someone else, sharing parts of himself that I thought were reserved for me. It felt like a betrayal, even if nothing physical had happened. I felt like my whole world was collapsing. I ran to the bathroom and locked the door, pressing my forehead against the cool tile as the realization hit me. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I thought about packing my things and leaving right then and there, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. I forced myself to keep it together, to go through the motions for a week, faking smiles and pretending everything was fine, even though inside I was falling apart. I avoided his touch, his kisses, as if I was somehow protecting myself by distancing my heart from his. I felt like a stranger in his life, like I was just occupying space. August 2019, Jay must have sensed that something was wrong, or maybe he felt guilty. I'll never know for sure. He booked a surprise weekend getaway in Malibu to celebrate what would have been our anniversary. He said he wanted to reconnect, to get away from everything for a while. We spent 2 days in a beachside bungalow, and for a moment, it felt like old times. We walked hand in hand along the shore, laughing like we used to, as if we could pretend the past year hadn't happened. We talked late into the night, and I let myself believe the words he said about starting fresh. I wanted so badly to make it work, to believe that we were just going through a rough patch and that real love could survive anything. But the Monday after we got back, I got a DM from S. She had screenshots of Jade messaging her, calling her cute, telling her how much he missed hanging out with her. It wasn't just flirting, it was the way he talked to her, with a kind of excitement I hadn't seen from him in months. My stomach dropped, and the room seemed to spin. I confronted him, and he denied everything, said S was just trying to mess with me. He claimed the screenshots were edited, that she was obsessed with getting back at him for rejecting her. Don't you see? She's trying to ruin what we have, he said, looking me dead in the eyes, trying to sell the lie. I wanted to believe him. I chose to believe him. Again. I was clinging to the last threads of our relationship, too scared to face the truth. July 2021, we made it 2 more years. 2 years of back and forth, fighting to make it work, of trying to forget everything that had happened. I convinced myself that if we could just get through school, if I could just focus on the future, we'd somehow be okay. But I could never fully trust him again. It felt like I was constantly on edge, always waiting for him to slip up. I'd check his phone when he wasn't looking, scour his social media for any signs of disloyalty. I was drowning in school and work, trying to get into grad programs, while Jay seemed to drift further and further away. He'd stay out late, saying he was just catching up with friends or stuck at work, but I knew better. I knew that when he wasn't with me, he wasn't truly alone. Then one day, without warning, he just looked at me and said, "I think it's time we called it quits." There was no argument, no drama, just an indifferent statement, as if he was canceling a dinner reservation. I was stunned, speechless. What? Why? I asked, desperate for an explanation, something to cling to. He shrugged and said we had grown apart. "It's not you, it's just everything," he mumbled, his words vague and meaningless. I reached out to touch his arm, but he pulled away. It felt like my entire world was crashing down, but to him, it seemed like nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Desperate for answers, I met up with C. I needed closure, or at least some kind of truth, even if it hurt. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Jay had cheated on me again that summer. But it wasn't with S. It was with C. He'd slept with his roommate. All the texts, all the lies, everything I had been gaslit into doubting for years, it was all true. The betrayal wasn't just from Jay, but from someone I had considered a friend. I sat there. In shock as C told me everything. The summer of 2018, the times Jay had stayed over at C's place just to catch up, it was all a cover for what was really happening.